How does existential psychotherapy work? I don't know. Yeah. Short video, right? Short video. Um, People ask me stuff. That's a question. You know, it's a question that's at least often implied. People ask me stuff and like all these deep questions, man, there's value in questions. Don't get me wrong. But some questions are best left unanswered. They're best left sort of mulled over so that, even a really good paradox maybe is best. It's best if you don't try and simply solve a paradox, but sort of grow into the space where you can accept the paradox. Get a little more comfortable with ambiguity. It's fine. What's the meaning of life? Someone the other day, Dr. Diaz, what's the meaning of life? Well, I don't know what the meaning of life is. Do I look like I know the meaning of life? Freud said love and work, and Freud probably meant that life is not a problem to solve, but a reality to experience, which probably means the person living a meaningful life rarely questions the meaning of life because the meaning is not a statement you can make. It's an engaged experience where you have meaningful relationships and do things that are meaningful and don't notice the passage of time. Cool. Anyway, so how does therapy work? Like, shit, dude, I don't know, but I'll tell you some stories. One of my therapy clients, she's going to stand in for a lot of my therapy clients and a lot of our therapy clients, right? People do this. Comes to therapy, and like for 9 weeks in a row, she wants to spend 45 of the 50 minutes talking about her husband. And her husband, like, hits on other girls during online poker tournaments they're supposed to be managing and is always on his laptop. They have back-to-back laptops, and he's always on it. And he won't show her. He closes the screen when she comes over, and just sometimes gets mad and throws expensive. It never threatens her, but does act in a threatening way towards property. And like, she wants to talk. She moved from some southern state and gave up the family property because she met him online, and now has to make a decision, and she can't. And sometimes she'd slow down enough. I could go, is this how you want to spend your time? Venting isn't shown to be an effective use of psychotherapy hours. Is that what you want to do with your time? She'd always say yes and go right back to kvetching, So eventually she slowed down enough that we could have real talk about what to do with therapy. It took a long time. To get here, and all of the usual stuff, all of the sort of hints and imprecations and nudges weren't working, and eventually it came down to just, all right, let me tell you how I think this would work. Your husband's not here. I can't change him. It sounds like you're asking me to change him. No. Well, it does sound that way because that's all you ever talk about. You would prefer he was different, and us talking about it isn't making him different, right? I can't change him. You can't change him. So there's not very much point talking about him. If you want him to come in, we can do that. No. Okay, well, so. But I can't change him. And I can't change your relationship with him. Because he's not here. You're not together. I can't, like, nudge the way you interact with each other. Right? Okay, cool. And I can't change you. And if I could change you, I wouldn't, because agency, man. My job here is to protect your agency, not to trample on it. And I can't change our relationship, because I can't just directly go in and modify some dials and switches and make our relationship different. All I can really do is sort of work on me. And so you talk, and then I work on me, and then we'd sort of swirl around and get down to what is the real stuff. And then as we do that, our relationship changes. Ideally what happens, this is not for her, but it's for everyone else. is the apparent power imbalance sort of levels out, and like the client starts to realize what you can and can't do, and the can't just overwhelms the can. We're completely helpless in the therapy session. There's nothing really we can do at all, except that. And then back to her. It's if our relationship changes, then you change, or you leave, right? But if you hang out in a relationship with someone, it's the relationship really doing the work, and then you change, and then your relationship with your husband must change, and then if he wants to stay in that relationship, he has to change, and that's how therapy works. And this would happen. This would happen in peer supervision. Last time I did a lot of peer supervision, sit in rooms with your colleagues and like co-supervise and consult on cases. It was graduate school. So these are graduate school stories. Colleague came to peer supervision with this heavy story about a client. The client had stopped making progress about 3 weeks before, and they were on the verge of leaving therapy, sort of unsatisfied. Not like Karen, unsatisfied with the service of the place, but this isn't working, So we went back, my friend and me and a couple of other colleagues, and we watched tape. We watched a lot of tape, and we looked at a bunch of important exchanges. And about three sessions earlier, there's this heated discussion. I mean, heated for therapy, as heated as it ever gets in therapy. And my friend seemed to want something from that client, some decision she wasn't ready to make. Like, don't you see that this is what's happening? And she's like, no, that's not what's happening. And like, he wants her to see it and make a decision, his decision about that, And the client justifying their actions, and they go around and around on that for a while, and then that therapy session ends with nothing agreed upon and nothing resolved. And then the next 2 weeks, they just sort of tried to work around this issue, talk about other stuff sort of half-heartedly, And then after all this investigation, my friend goes, oh, well, there's your problem, right? He'd been trying to get her to budge on something, trying to. Existential psychology is non-directive. And he hit a point where he could not accept the person as they were, so he was insisting they change. In the way a therapist does, not the way a friend or family member does, but just the same, pushing. We talked it out, but he didn't really need to. He didn't need to talk it out. He saw on his own, he clearly needed to make a change. It was a kind of an oh shit moment. You know those, right? Where you're reviewing yourself and you go, oh shit. You know what you have to do. You don't like it that much, maybe. But he's a wonderful human being, and he accepted what he had to do. And what he had to do was make a change, find a way to accept that person, that client, with their flaw or their fault or whatever it was he thought of it as, totally and completely, and from a position of awe and reverence and non-diagnosis and all of that, just like accept it. So that client came back for what they imagined would be a termination session, and my friend went straight to the difficult talk and owned up and earned trust and said, can we have that talk again? And then she said everything she needed to say, and he was like, yep, get it. And then that therapy went on. It went on for a few more weeks, and it ended in a satisfactory fashion, in a way that felt like complete, right? All of the story arcs were resolved, So it was a little risky because a lot of schoolmates from back in the day might be able to see themselves in this story. And the reason for that is because it happened several times with several people, and it's still happening now, What happens is the therapist gets stuck. The therapy gets stuck. The therapist realizes something about themselves, and the therapy gets unstuck. So, the here and now orientation, right? I just can't change I just can't change my clients' lives. And if I could, I wouldn't. You know, a Taiwanese therapist I know says it's karma. You can't take people's karma. And that's as good a word as any, I guess. That Rollo May would say destiny, whatever. If I could take that, I wouldn't take that. It's not mine. I haven't heard that kind of authority, and I can't derive it. Sometimes my clients complain and wish their people were better. But there's nothing I can do about that. I can't change their relationship with others. I can't and won't change my clients. Again, no authority. My job is to protect their agency. Could I change my relationship with the client? Well, not directly, not without applying the authority that I'm trying to deny. I'm trying to equalize power, not to exert it. So all that I'm left with, all that I can do is change myself. If I change myself, I relate to them differently. They relate to me differently. Our relationship changes. In the context of a different relationship, the person changes to accommodate it. Then their other relationships start to change. Now, others in their lives might resist those changes. They might try to make the person back into whoever they were before because change is inconvenient, or they preferred them biddable and powerless, but then they reach a decision point, stay or go. Should I cool it or should I blow? If they stay, the relationship must change, and therefore they must change. Someone poked at Virginia Satir once, sort of asking her if she thought doing family systems therapy, if she thought she was changing the world. And she replied, the world's made of families, and I'm changing families. So, yeah. And I mean that. More, I mean this, probably apocryphal story of Gandhi. A mother brought him her son and asked Gandhi to tell the boy to stop eating sugar. And Gandhi replied he certainly would, but she had to come back at a later date, next week or something, I forget. And she did. She brought the boy again, and then Gandhi told the boy to stop eating sugar. They had a little session, and then mother thanks him. Thanks for doing that, but why? Why'd you say, come back next week? Couldn't you have told him the first time? And Gandhi says, well, I could have, but at that time I was still eating sugar. Is this always how therapy works? Look, man, I already said I don't know how it works. Sometimes it might be developing comfort with ambiguity, working on a phobia of death through incremental exposure, recapitulating old relationships in a more functional way, trying on new ways of being in a scene of unconditional regard, But I've seen this particular process go down lots of times, and it bears consideration as one of the ways therapy could work. Okay, bye.